Marina Voss had lived in the Crescent Court apartments for 4 peaceful months. She had carefully chosen this place for its sturdy walls, decent soundproofing, and most importantly, the building's no pets larger than a loaf of bread policy. It was quiet, controlled, and the kind of environment where her work-from-home schedule could thrive without interruption. Or so she thought, until the man in 3C moved in. The first time she noticed him was a Tuesday night at precisely 11:47 p.m. when the air was pierced by the unmistakable sound of an electric guitar riff. Not just any riff either, but a messy, overenthusiastic attempt at something that probably should have been practiced privately before unleashing it on the world. Her coffee mug rattled on her desk. She froze, fingers hovering over her keyboard, then sighed, slapped her laptop shut, and muttered, "Unbelievable." The guitar did not stop. Jackson Reed, the new tenant, was apparently under the impression that his apartment came with its own backstage pass to Madison Square Garden. And as far as Marina could tell, he had zero interest in anyone's beauty sleep. By midnight, he was shouting lyrics, half the words wrong, into what sounded like a tin can microphone. Marina shoved a pillow over her head. The pillow did nothing. The next morning, she slipped a sticky note under his door. Polite. Neutral. To the point. Hi, neighbor. Welcome to Crescent Court. Quick note. The walls are thinner than you think. Midnight rock concerts aren't ideal for those of us with early mornings. Thanks. She even drew a little smiley face to soften it. That night, the guitar stopped. Success. Marina went to bed feeling smug. At 7 a.m., however, she awoke to the sound of a harmonica. A harmonica. She sat up in bed, hair sticking up in furious tufts, listening as a wheezy, off-key tune filled her apartment like a dying train whistle. She stomped to the wall, banged her fist against it, and shouted, "Some of us have meetings." On the other side, Jackson's laugh echoed, low and amused. "Good morning to you too, sunshine." That was the moment Marina knew she hated him. Later that week, their paths finally crossed face-to-face in the hallway. Marina was carrying groceries, earbuds in, carefully balancing a carton of eggs. Jackson emerged from his apartment in ripped jeans, hair an untamed mess, guitar case slung over his shoulder like he was on tour. He gave her a lazy grin. "You're the sticky note bandit, right?" he asked. Marina tugged out an earbud. "Excuse me?" He pointed at her with mock seriousness. Polite handwriting, subtle passive-aggressive, smiley face. "That was you. Thanks for the critique. I've decided to expand my range." She blinked. "Expand?" "Yeah. I'm learning the harmonica now. You like it?" His grin widened. The carton of eggs tilted dangerously in her arms. She adjusted them, narrowed her eyes, and snapped, "I like silence." "Ah." Jackson nodded, pretending to think hard. "Yeah, see, I don't really jam well with silence. Bad rhythm. But thanks for the feedback, neighbor." He winked, then sauntered past her, whistling out of tune. Marina fantasized about throwing an egg at his back. By Friday, the building was buzzing with attention. Mrs. Kaplan from 2B had taken to peeking through her peephole whenever Marina left her apartment, as though waiting for a front-row seat to the next argument. The college kids in 4A had started a betting pool over who would snap first. Even the maintenance man, Arnold, muttered, "Place is finally getting lively," when Marina stormed past him on her way to file a noise complaint. Her complaint earned her nothing but a sigh from the landlord and the advice to work it out like adults. Marina returned home, fuming, only to find another sticky note on her own door. This one was in messy, bold handwriting. "Dear Sticky Note Bandit, thank you for your feedback. I promise to only play songs that match your vibe. Sincerely, your local rock god." She crumpled it into a ball, but not before noticing the doodle of a badly drawn guitar with little stars around it. That night, at exactly 11 p.m., the guitar started again. But this time, instead of wailing nonsense, Jackson strummed slowly, deliberately, and then sang, in a ridiculously exaggerated baritone, "Silence is golden, Marinade." Her eyes went wide. He knew her name. She stomped into the hallway, pounded on his door, and shouted, "Do you have a death wish?" The door opened immediately. Jackson leaned against the frame, smirking like a man who had been waiting for this exact moment. Wow, didn't realize you were such a fan. Want an autograph? Marina gawked at him, momentarily speechless, and that only seemed to delight him further. Around the corner, Mrs. Kaplan's door creaked open. Finally, she whispered gleefully, "The showdown begins." Jackson gestured toward the older woman. "See? Even our audience loves it." Marina's jaw tightened. This isn't a show. This is harassment. Harassment. Jackson put a hand to his chest in mock injury. "Sweetheart, this is art." She nearly launched herself at him. He raised his hands, laughing, and added, "Fine, fine. Tell you what, I'll keep it down tonight. But only if you admit you enjoyed that little performance." Marina's eyes narrowed to slits. "Enjoyed? I hope your strings snap mid-solo." She spun on her heel, marched back into her apartment, and slammed the door. Through the wall, she heard his voice call cheerfully, "Good night, neighbor." Marina pressed her forehead against the wood and muttered, "I'm going to kill him." But in the pit of her stomach, there was a flicker, just the tiniest flicker, of reluctant amusement. By the following week, the apartment building had officially become divided into two camps, Team Marina and Team Jackson. The sides weren't evenly matched. Marina had the sympathy vote of anyone who appreciated peace and quiet, while Jackson had charisma, volume, and the ability to bribe neighbors with free, live music. The pranks began small. Marina left another sticky note, only this time it wasn't polite. She slapped it onto his door in bold block letters. "Learn to play before you perform." The next morning, when she went to check her mailbox, glitter exploded out of it like a unicorn had detonated inside. She froze, shimmering sparkles raining over her hair, her coat, even her shoes. Across the hall, Jackson leaned against the railing with a mug of coffee, smirk firmly in place. "Wow," he said. "Didn't know you were into sequins. Nice look." She glared through the haze of rainbow dust. "You're cleaning this." "Oh, absolutely not." He saluted her with his coffee. "But hey, at least you're sparkling now." She went upstairs, plotting his downfall. 2 days later, his Wi-Fi mysteriously changed from read on the beat to I'm bad at guitar. Marina didn't admit it, of course, but she was spotted grinning smugly at her laptop while he cursed loud enough for the building to hear. He retaliated by signing her up for a subscription to Cats in Hats Weekly. The first issue arrived with an entire fold-out poster of a Siamese in a tiny cowboy hat. Marina opened her door just as Jackson strolled past, humming cheerfully. She held the magazine aloft. "Really?" she snapped. Jackson tilted his head at the cover. But look at him. Lil Boots looks good in denim. That's art." Marina threw the magazine at his chest. He caught it, still laughing. Soon the whole building was watching. The college kids upstairs had started placing bets on the next prank. Mrs. Kaplan from 2B began knitting while camped out in the lobby, just to catch any hallway drama. Even Arnold the maintenance guy shook his head in mock despair when glitter kept showing up in the vents. The feud escalated further when Marina discovered her trash neatly placed in front of her door. Takeout containers she was very sure she hadn't left there. She knocked so hard on Jackson's door that it rattled the frame. He opened it, munching on chips. "Problem. You put garbage at my door." "I would never," he said, biting into another chip. "Maybe the trash was just drawn to you." She took one menacing step forward. "If you..." Hey. He raised both hands, feigning innocence. "Don't shoot the messenger. Maybe your aura's magnetic." Her jaw clenched. "I swear, one more stunt and what? You'll report me to the landlord again? Already got that memo. He told me to be nice to my neighbor." "Which I am." He gestured broadly, as though his pranks were acts of charity. That was the moment Marina realized that noise complaints wouldn't solve this. Subtlety wouldn't work. She needed to fight fire with fire. The next morning, Jackson opened his door to find an Amazon package addressed to him, except inside was a giant beginner's guide to guitar for ages 6 and under, with stickers and a neon pink strap. He looked up just in time to catch Marina leaning on her own doorframe, sipping her coffee with the serene expression of someone who had already won. He lifted the strap out of the box. "Pink. Really? It'll bring out your eyes," she said sweetly. The war was now public. Every knock, every prank, every sarcastic remark became a spectator event for the rest of the tenants. And while Marina told herself she was simply defending her sanity, there was no denying the faint thrill every time Jackson fired back. One evening, as she carried laundry down to the basement, she heard him practicing again. This time it wasn't bad, it was annoyingly decent. She froze halfway down the steps, unwilling to admit she was listening. Then he sang, loudly enough for her to hear through the stairwell, "Sticky notes and coffee cups, my neighbor hates my guts." Marina dropped her detergent bottle down the stairs. From above, Jackson's laugh echoed. "Careful, 3B. Gravity's got it out for you." She stomped down, cheeks burning, detergent clutched to her chest. He was insufferable. Absolutely insufferable. And yet, for the first time, she caught herself smiling on the way back up. Just a little. By the time a full month had passed, Crescent Court Apartments had transformed into a battleground. What started as late-night guitar riffs and sticky notes had evolved into full-blown psychological warfare. Marina found herself checking her doorknob for booby traps before leaving in the morning, while Jackson had started eyeing every package in the lobby as though it might explode in a puff of glitter. The first strike of the week came from Marina. She'd had enough after yet another midnight concert, so she took matters into her own hands, literally. Using her Wi-Fi router, a forum tutorial, and a dangerous amount of caffeine, she hacked into Jackson's network. Within an hour, Read on the Beat had been renamed to Tone Deaf Loser. By the time Jackson noticed, every single neighbor was snickering in the hallways. His revenge was swift. Marina came home the next day to find her apartment door plastered with photocopied posters advertising guitar lessons, supposedly taught by her. Each one proudly displayed her actual phone number. She spent the entire evening fielding calls from strangers who wanted to learn Wonderwall. By now, management was involved. The landlord, Mr. Cohen, called them both into his office like two misbehaving schoolkids. His desk sagged under the weight of noise complaints, prank reports, and one particularly furious note from Mrs. Kaplan that simply read, "Pick a side. My sanity depends on it." "I don't care who started this circus," Mr. Cohen barked, rubbing his temples. "Either you two knock it off or you're both out." Marina crossed her arms. "Gladly. Evict him." Jackson grinned, leaning back in his chair like he was at a comedy show. "You know, she really does have a way with words. Can't blame me for being inspired." "Inspired?" Marina's voice sharpened. "You dump trash on my doorstep." "Artistic placement," Jackson corrected smoothly. "Artistic my." Mr. Cohen slammed his palm on the desk. "Enough. One more incident and you're both gone. Do you understand?" They both nodded stiffly, glaring at each other across the office. The truce lasted exactly 3 hours. That evening, Marina was making tea when she heard it, faint music drifting through the wall. She froze, mug halfway to her lips. Jackson was playing again, but not obnoxiously. It was soft, careful, almost good. She hated how much she noticed. Then came the lyrics. "Oh, Marina, queen of sticky notes, ruining my vibe with your boring quotes." The mug nearly shattered in her hand. By morning, she was back in attack mode. When Jackson opened his door, he found a beautifully wrapped box with a bow. Curious, he opened it right there in the hallway. Out puffed a cloud of talcum powder, covering his hair, face, and shirt in a ghostly white. Marina stepped out of her apartment at that exact moment, dressed impeccably for a client call, and raised her eyebrows. Nice look. Ever considered auditioning for Phantom of the Opera? Jackson coughed through the powder, wiping at his face. "This means war." "Oh, I thought we were already at war," Marina said sweetly, brushing imaginary dust off her blazer. By that afternoon, the entire building was invested. The college kids had started a chalkboard tally in the lobby labeled Prank Points, Marina versus Jackson. Marina currently led by 3. Jackson, of course, claimed they were biased. His counterattack was ridiculous, even by his standards. When Marina went to do laundry, she opened the washer to find it filled with balloons. Not water balloons, just ordinary party balloons crammed inside until they spilled out across the floor. She stared in disbelief. Behind her, Jackson leaned against the doorframe with his ever-present smirk. Happy unbirthday. She kicked one of the balloons at him. It bounced off his chest. Do you ever act like an adult? Rarely, he said, grinning. It's boring. She stormed past him, muttering under her breath. But as she left, she caught him laughing, and for some treacherous reason, her lips twitched upward too. The prank war had gone too far. Everyone could see it. The hallways buzzed with gossip, and Mrs. Kaplan had even started bringing popcorn to stakeouts. Something had to give. But neither Marina nor Jackson seemed willing to stop. Not when the sparks between them, whether of irritation or something else entirely, burned brighter every day. And as the storm clouds began to gather outside, the residents of Crescent Court quietly wondered if the feud was about to reach its breaking point. By the time the third week of pranks had passed, the building had lost all semblance of normalcy. Laundry times were disrupted because no one wanted to risk being caught in the crossfire. The mailman had started delivering packages while crouched, like a soldier in enemy territory. Even the vending machine in the lobby had a Team Marina sticker slapped on it, which was quickly defaced with Team Jackson for life. The residents were no longer just observers. They were collateral damage. It all came to a head when Jackson's latest prank went disastrously wrong. He'd taped a motion-activated speaker outside Marina's door, set to blast a triumphant trumpet fanfare every time she walked past. He was hoping to annoy her, maybe even embarrass her once or twice. But it was Mrs. Kaplan who triggered it first. The trumpet blared so loudly that she dropped her grocery bag, sending a jar of pickles rolling down the hallway. Marina appeared at her door seconds later, eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. What did you do now? Jackson, caught in the act of adjusting the speaker, grinned sheepishly. A modern art installation? Mrs. Kaplan shook her head, muttering about immature children as she shuffled away. And that was the final straw. By nightfall, every tenant had agreed. There needed to be an intervention. The next day, a hastily written notice was taped to both Marina's and Jackson's doors. Mandatory building peace meeting. Attendance required. Snacks provided. At 7 p.m., the residents gathered in the lobby like a jury ready to deliver a verdict. Plastic chairs were set in a circle. Someone had brought chips. Marina sat on one end, arms crossed, jaw tight. Jackson lounged opposite her, twirling a pen like he was about to sign autographs. Mr. Cohen, the landlord, looked 10 years older than he had the last time he'd summoned them. All right, everyone. Let's get this over with. We're here because these 2-inch, he gestured dramatically at Marina and Jackson, are driving us insane. Insane, Marina repeated, offended. I'm the victim here. He's the one who... Don't start, Mr. Cohen warned, holding up a hand. From across the circle, Jackson raised his eyebrows. Victim? You're the one who renamed my Wi-Fi. Do you know how embarrassing it is when your buddy tries to log on and sees tone-deaf loser pop up? Accurate branding, Marina shot back. The college kid from 4A piped up. Honestly, though, that was genius. We gave her 5 points for that. He pointed to the chalkboard tally, now dragged into the meeting like courtroom evidence. Marina smirked. Thank you. See. Jackson leaned back, gesturing wildly. She's enjoying this. She lives for it. Excuse me? Marina's voice went cold. Do you think I enjoy vacuuming glitter out of my carpet for the 3rd time this week? Mrs. Kaplan coughed loudly. Some of us enjoy peace and quiet. My knitting group has been disrupted by trumpet blasts and balloon avalanches. It has to stop. Balloon avalanches? Another neighbor repeated, clearly intrigued. Yeah, Arnold the maintenance guy said, chuckling. He filled the laundry room with balloons. Looked like a birthday party in there. Everyone turned to Jackson. He grinned unapologetically. What? People love balloons. The meeting quickly spiraled into chaos, with neighbors airing every petty grievance. Someone's yoga class interrupted by guitar riffs, someone else's laundry ending up in the wrong machine thanks to a prank gone sideways. At some point, both Marina and Jackson found themselves standing side by side, defending their actions against the mob of annoyed tenants. "Look," Marina said, exasperated, "I wouldn't even be doing this if he hadn't started it." Correction, Jackson cut in smoothly. "I didn't start it. I continued it. There's a difference." "Oh, that's rich." "Not as rich as your coffee budget. Do you know she drinks 4 cups before noon? That's called being productive." They bickered like an old married couple in front of everyone, and for the first time, the neighbors noticed something odd. There was heat in their words, sure, but underneath, there was also a strange rhythm, like 2 people who couldn't help but match each other's tempo. "Wow," muttered one of the college kids. "They're basically flirting." Both Marina and Jackson whipped their heads toward him in horror. "We are not," they snapped in perfect unison. The room erupted in laughter. Mr. Cohen massaged his temples. "This isn't working. Just go home. And for the love of everything holy, stop involving the rest of us." Marina and Jackson stomped out, both furious, both muttering under their breath. But as they marched back toward their apartments, they glanced at each other. For the briefest moment, their eyes met, and instead of pure loathing, there was a flicker of something else. They both looked away instantly. Back in the lobby, Mrs. Kaplan shook her head. "Mark my words, this won't end in murder. It'll end in marriage." The other tenants nodded, already whispering bets about when. The storm came in like it had been personally invited to ruin everyone's evening. At first, it was just heavy rain pelting the windows, a bit of thunder in the distance. But within the hour, the power flickered, the wind howled through the cracks in the old building, and the basement flooded ankle-deep. Marina was in her apartment, sipping tea and trying to ignore the gale outside, when the lights blinked off completely. She groaned. Of course. She reached for her flashlight, only to hear a knock at her door. She opened it to find Jackson standing there, hair dripping wet like he'd gone surfing in the downpour, holding a ukulele of all things. "You've got to be kidding me," he grinned. "What?" "It's portable. Way more practical than a guitar." "You brought an instrument to storm?" "Music heals, Marina. It's basically first aid." He strummed a cheerful chord. She slammed the door in his face. Unfortunately, a minute later, another knock came, this time from Arnold the maintenance guy, looking frazzled. "Basement's flooding. Cohen's MIA. We need all hands." Marina sighed, grabbed her raincoat, and followed him downstairs. To her horror, Jackson trailed after them, ukulele slung over his shoulder like a weapon. The basement was chaos. Water already rising, people shouting, someone's toddler gleefully splashing as though this were a pool party. Marina immediately took charge, pointing people toward buckets and towels. "We need to block the leak near the boiler. And someone find more flashlights." "Wow," Jackson muttered beside her, strumming a dramatic chord. "Listen to General Marina leading the troops." "Do you want to be useful, or do you just enjoy being irritating?" she snapped. He pretended to think. Bit of both. They ended up side by side, hauling sandbags and directing people. At one point, Marina shoved a heavy bag into Jackson's arms with a scowl. "Think you can lift this? Or do you need to write a sad ballad about it first?" Jackson staggered but recovered, flashing a grin. "Don't worry, boss. I'll dedicate my first album to your leadership, The Tyrant of 3B. Around them, neighbors stifled laughter. Even the toddler clapped, probably for the ukulele. Hours dragged on. With the storm raging and the power still dead, everyone was herded into the lobby, blankets spread out, flashlights casting eerie shadows. Marina sat stiffly on the floor, notebook in hand, trying to list supplies. Jackson plopped down next to her with his ukulele and began strumming loudly. She glared. "Do you have an off button?" "Nope." He played a dramatic flourish. "But I can play Smoke on the Water if you need inspiration. You're going to be the first casualty of this storm." He smirked. "If I go down, I'm haunting your coffee machine." Despite herself, Marina bit back a laugh. Just a small one. Later that night, when she tried to sleep curled up in a blanket, Jackson's obnoxious snoring echoed through the lobby like a malfunctioning lawnmower. She hurled a cushion at his head. He cracked one eye open and mumbled, "At least you're not filing a noise complaint," then promptly fell back asleep. Marina lay awake, staring at the ceiling, half annoyed and half entertained. She'd never admit it out loud, but he made the storm less terrifying, less heavy. Of course, she'd still strangle him in the morning if he so much as touched that ukulele again. By morning, the lobby looked like a refugee camp sponsored by IKEA. Blankets draped over chairs, empty mugs scattered everywhere, and neighbors bundled together like mismatched burritos. The storm hadn't let up. The power was still gone. And the coffee machine was, according to Marina, the true casualty of this disaster. She was pacing with a clipboard, doing inventory like she was running a war bunker. "We have 5 flashlights, 3 candles, and 2 dozen granola bars. If we ration properly." Jackson interrupted with a yawn. "You sound like you're prepping us for the apocalypse. Should we also start deciding who will eat first?" Marina shot him a glare sharp enough to slice bread. "Congratulations, you've just volunteered to be on the menu."
Ha!
"Joke's on you. I'm stringy." He plucked his ukulele dramatically, earning groans from the sleep-deprived crowd. Someone muttered, "Can we vote him off the island?" Jackson grinned. "Sorry, no eliminations allowed. We're all in this sitcom together." Marina pinched the bridge of her nose. "I'm surrounded by idiots." But the thing was, he was helping. Somehow. When Arnold couldn't fix the busted pipes, Jackson distracted the panicked neighbors by teaching the kids a ridiculous song called "Don't Flood on Me." It was terrible, but they sang it with gusto, stomping their feet like they were rehearsing for a musical. Marina tried not to smile. She failed. Later, when she was distributing granola bars, Jackson leaned over her shoulder. "Careful with those. This is basically currency now. You're holding the Bitcoin of 2025. She shoved one into his chest. "Eat it before I use it to gag you." "Romantic," he said with a smirk, tearing the wrapper with his teeth. They ended up sitting side by side while rain hammered the windows. Marina scribbled notes in her clipboard. Jackson plucked soft chords, less obnoxious this time. "You ever stop moving?" he asked after a while. "What do you mean?" "You're always organizing. Planning.
Bossing.
Do you ever just chill?" She gave him a sideways look. "Some of us don't have the luxury of floating through life with a ukulele."
Ouch.
Low blow. He strummed a sad little tune. "This ukulele is a lifestyle. Thank you very much." "And a curse on humanity," she muttered, but the corner of her mouth twitched. That night, as blankets shuffled and people tried to sleep, the storm howled louder than before. A branch slammed against the lobby window with a crash. Everyone jolted awake. The kids started crying. Marina froze, her throat tight. She hated storms, always had, but she didn't move, didn't let anyone see the panic bubbling up. Then Jackson slid closer, lowering his voice.
"Hey."
"It's just the wind. I'll keep watch. Go to sleep, General." Marina wanted to snap back, to remind him she wasn't afraid, but instead, she just muttered, "Don't play that ukulele. Scout's honor." He tucked it under his blanket like it was sacred. Somehow, she managed to close her eyes. And for the first time, Jackson's presence didn't feel like an annoyance. It felt like a strange kind of safety. Not that she'd ever admit it. By the 3rd day of storm camp life, the building's lobby smelled like wet socks, granola bar wrappers, and collective despair. Everyone was cranky. The toddler militia had staged a coup over toy distribution. And Marina, clipboard queen, looked one passive-aggressive eye twitch away from a nervous breakdown. Jackson, of course, seemed to thrive in chaos. He was sprawled across 2 chairs like a lazy king, strumming his ukulele with the smugness of a man who hadn't brushed his hair in 72 hours. "Do you ever sit like a normal human?" Marina asked, glaring over her notes. "This is normal. For a rock star." He slid into an off-key riff. "I call this one song of the flooded basement. Catchy, she said flatly. You'll sell dozens of copies. Dozens is generous. Thanks, neighbor. She rolled her eyes, so hard she nearly saw her own brain. The cabin fever was real. People were bickering over blankets, arguing about how to boil water without power, and one neighbor had attempted to toast bread with a candle, setting off a minor panic. Marina had spent the morning putting out metaphorical fires and was now nursing a pounding headache. That's when Jackson plopped down next to her, offering a crumpled pack of gummy bears like it was a peace treaty. "What's this?" she asked, suspicious. "Luxury goods," he said. "Straight from the back of my emergency drawer." She stared. "You've had candy this whole time and didn't share?" "Relax. I was waiting for the right moment." He waggled the bag. "Like now, when you look one spreadsheet away from murdering everyone." Despite herself, she took one.
Fine.
"But if these are stale..." "They're aged," he interrupted. "Like fine wine. Or me." She snorted before she could stop herself. He grinned like he'd just scored a touchdown. The sugar helped. So did his ridiculous commentary. They ended up sharing the bag, shoulder to shoulder, arguing over which color gummy was superior. "Green's obviously the best," Jackson declared.
Wrong.
"Red is classic." "You would pick red." "It's the clipboard of gummy bears. Boring, predictable, bossy." She poked him in the ribs with the edge of her pen. "Say that again and see what happens." The moment might have tipped into something almost soft, if not for Arnold stumbling into the lobby with his pants soaked to the knees, yelling, "The basement's rising again." Jackson groaned. "Perfect timing, Arnold. You just killed the vibe." There was no vibe, Marina snapped, cheeks hot. "Oh, there was a vibe," Jackson said with a grin, springing up to grab buckets. The two of them ended up ankle-deep in water again, passing buckets back and forth like they were training for some bizarre Olympic sport. Marina's hair plastered to her forehead, her arms ached, and Jackson kept making sarcastic play-by-play commentary. And here comes Marina, the clipboard champion, with another bucket. Will she beat her record?
Oh.
She almost slipped. What a recovery. "Keep it up and I'll accidentally drop this bucket on your head." "Worth it," he said, grinning through the sweat. By the time they staggered back upstairs, soaked and exhausted, Marina muttered, "I've officially had enough of you." Jackson leaned against the wall, dripping wet, and smirked.
Funny.
"I was just thinking I could get used to this." She froze. He didn't mean it seriously, probably. But the way he said it, half teasing, half something else, made her heart trip. Naturally, that was the exact moment the toddler militia pelted them with soggy teddy bears, screaming, "Water fight." Marina sighed. "I hate this building." Jackson wiped a teddy bear from his shoulder and laughed. "You love it. Admit it." She refused. Out loud anyway. The storm finally began to die down on the fourth night, but the building was still without power. Everyone was tired, cranky, and desperate for a real shower. The lobby smelled like a tragic blend of wet dog, instant noodles, and human despair. Marina was scribbling notes again, trying to calculate food portions, when Jackson plopped down beside her with the subtlety of a marching band. "Morning, General," he said cheerfully, handing her a lukewarm bottle of water. "Thought I'd keep my commanding officer hydrated." "Very funny." She took it anyway. He leaned back against the wall, tapping the neck of his ukulele, like he was restraining himself from playing it. "You know, you'd be unbearable if you weren't also kind of impressive." Her pen froze mid-scribble. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just that you're bossy, sarcastic, mildly terrifying, but you kept this whole building from falling apart. That's impressive." Marina blinked. Was he actually complimenting her? "Did you hit your head in the basement flood?" "Don't ruin it," he said, smirking. The words lingered, though, curling somewhere warm in her chest. Later that afternoon, Arnold managed to jury-rig a camp stove. Naturally, Jackson insisted on being head chef. Marina tried to wrestle the role from him, but he declared, "The people demand pancakes," and somehow rallied a crowd. The pancakes were terrible. Half-burnt, half-raw, all glued to the pan. Marina bit into one and winced. "Congratulations, you've invented rubber." "It's called rustic cooking," he said, pointing a spatula at her. A true survival delicacy. You should be arrested for culinary crimes. Funny, I was going to say the same thing about your handwriting.
Her jaw dropped.
Excuse me? Your notes. Look at that chicken scratch. If you died in this storm, historians would never be able to decode your supply logs. You're insufferable. And yet, you keep sitting next to me. The neighbors chuckled. A few kids giggled. And Marina realized, with a horrified jolt, that people were starting to look at them differently, like they weren't enemies anymore. Like maybe there was something else simmering under all the sarcasm. That night, when most of the lobby was asleep, Marina caught herself watching Jackson as he softly strummed a lullaby for the kids. It wasn't obnoxious this time. It was gentle, quiet. His voice low, almost tender. She hated that her stomach flipped. She hated even more that she liked the sound. When he caught her staring, he smirked. Careful, 3B. If you smile at me again, people will talk. She rolled her eyes, heat rising to her cheeks. Trust me, no one is talking. But they both knew she was lying. And when a neighbor teased, "When's the wedding?" the next morning, Marina nearly choked on her instant coffee. Jackson only grinned like he'd won something. The storm broke on the fifth morning. The clouds drifted off, the rain stopped hammering the windows, and for the first time in days, sunlight spilled across the lobby. When the lights flickered back to life, the entire building cheered like they'd just won the lottery. Marina should have felt relief. And she did, mostly. But as neighbors packed up blankets and carried soggy pillows back to their apartments, she felt something else too. Something she didn't want to name. Because the storm meant life was going back to normal. Which meant Jackson would stop hovering around with his dumb ukulele and gummy bear bribes. Which meant she'd stop catching herself almost enjoying his company. He stretched dramatically in the sunlight, his hair sticking up in every direction. Well, that was fun. We survived the apocalypse. Barely, Marina muttered. And we bonded, he added, flashing her a grin. We did not bond. Oh, we definitely bonded. Don't fight it. She opened her mouth to argue, but Arnold called for help carrying supplies back to storage, saving her from answering. The building gradually returned to its routine. Elevators worked. Wi-Fi came back, and everyone immediately buried themselves in their phones. The lobby emptied, leaving only the faint scent of wet socks as evidence of the chaos. By the next day, Marina was back at her desk, catching up on work emails. She was halfway through typing a scathing message when she noticed something odd. Her stapler was glued to her desk. Her eyes narrowed. Across the hall, Jackson whistled innocently, walking past her door with a smug little strut. Really? She called after him. We just survived a natural disaster together, and you go straight back to pranks. He leaned against the doorway, grinning. What can I say? It's my love language. Love language. Pranks, sarcasm, light harassment. You know, romance. She groaned, but her cheeks flushed. That night, she retaliated by swapping his coffee grounds with decaf. The next morning, he staggered into the lobby, bleary-eyed, demanding, "Why do I feel like a corpse?" She sipped her latte with a serene smile. Karma. The war was back on, but it was different now. Lighter. Teasing instead of hostile. Every prank ended with laughter. Every insult carried a spark. A week later, the building hosted a storm survivor party. Neighbors brought food, kids ran wild, and someone set up twinkle lights across the lobby. Marina showed up in a red dress that made her look nothing like the clipboard tyrant of Storm Week. Jackson nearly dropped his plate of chips when he saw her. You clean up nice, he said, trying to sound casual. You sound surprised. Not surprised. Just impressed. Again. She arched a brow. Careful. Compliments aren't your brand. Neither is dancing, he said, offering his hand. But I'm feeling reckless. She hesitated, then took it. The music was loud, the dance clumsy, and Jackson stepped on her toes twice. But Marina laughed, really laughed for the first time in weeks. He looked at her like she was the only person in the room, and for once, she didn't hate it. Halfway through the song, someone yelled, "Finally. Took you long enough." The neighbors clapped and whistled, and Marina's face turned scarlet. Jackson leaned closer, smirking. Guess the whole building ships us. Ships us? She repeated. Don't fight it, 3B. We're canon now. She rolled her eyes, but when he kissed her, quick, warm, reckless, she didn't pull away. Maybe she even kissed him back. Not that she'd admit it. Not yet. But the war? Oh, the war was officially over. Or maybe it had just turned into something much more dangerous. 3 months later, the building was quiet again. The storm was just a memory. The lobby smelled faintly of lavender instead of wet socks, and everyone had mostly moved on. Everyone except Marina and Jackson. They were officially something. Neighbors, prank partners, reluctant allies, occasional co-chefs, disaster. And, though neither of them would admit it without heavy sarcasm, more than that. Marina was sitting at her desk one Saturday morning, sipping coffee, when she noticed something odd. Her mouse wouldn't move. She tugged. Nothing. She tugged harder and realized it was duct taped to the desk. "Jackson," she yelled across the hall. His door creaked open, and he leaned out, grinning like the devil. "Oh no, is the mighty General 3B under siege again?" She marched across, holding the desk mouse still attached by tape. "You're dead." He gasped in mock horror. "You'd kill your boyfriend over tape?" "Boyfriend," she repeated, narrowing her eyes. He blinked. "Did I say that out loud?" She stared at him for a long beat. He looked nervous for once, shifting his weight, scratching the back of his neck. Finally, she smirked. "Only because it's true." And before he could reply, she shoved the taped mouse into his chest. "Now help me peel this off before I actually dump you." He laughed, pulling her into a quick kiss.
"Fine.
"But just know, this war will never end. Not even if we're 80. "Good," she said, grabbing his hand. "Because neither will I." From down the hall, Arnold's voice echoed. "If you two break the Wi-Fi router with your pranks again, I'm moving out." They both shouted back in unison. No promises. And just like that, life in the building went on. Louder, funnier, and somehow better now that the war had turned into the strangest love story their neighbors had ever witnessed.